Good morning. My name is John Jones. I'm chairman of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to the notice provisions of the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act, with all participating authority members attending in person. While this meeting is open and public, there will be no public comments, as is OTA's longstanding historical practice. In addition to being open to the public for in-person observation, the meeting is being live streamed and recorded for remote viewing. The time is 10 a.m. and I am calling the November 7th, 2024 regular meeting of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority to order. I would also ask everybody to please silence your phones. Charity, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Wilberry.
Here.
Mr. Todd Cone. Mr. Gene Love.
Here.
Mr. John Titsworth.
Here.
Ms. Dana Weber.
Here.
Mr. John Jones.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next item of business was for the approval of minutes for the regular meeting of October 8th, 2024. Do I have a motion for that?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Please vote appropriately. Voting has ended and the approval of minutes has been approved. Moving to our items of business, the first items are budget items. Ms. Dana Weber.
All right, the first person I'd like to call is Miss Wendy Smith.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Jones, members of the authority, Director E. Kelly. The 2025 annual budget is being presented for your approval along with the operating budget. The annual budget also includes a capital plan of $165.5 million, which is funded by the general fund and the reserve maintenance fund. So again, I already did this last month, but I have to do it again. I also wanted to start out by thanking Jonna Grant for all her work on the 2025 annual budget with reduced staff, which literally means one person. That's her. She generates this document after working with each of the division managers to help them prepare their budgets and ensure that their divisions could obtain funds that would keep a high quality of services that OTA provides. And I couldn't be more proud of her. So thank you again, Jonna. With that, I'm happy to present the 2025 annual budget. This budget ensures that the OTA can continue to operate the facilities both safely and efficiently. This year's budget comes in at $156.3 million, an increase of just under $400,000, and results in a 0.26% increase over 2024's O&M budget. The budget you are approving today is identical to the one that you saw last month as for the preliminary budget in October, and as you might recall, the changes included the addition of 8 much-needed troopers for safety issues. Safety is really important to us, so we want to keep our system as safe as possible, so there is an addition of 8 much-needed troopers for the Oklahoma Turnpike system from Highway Patrol. And then speaking of safety, the authority is also working diligently to complete its conversion of its roads to cashless. Converting to cashless tolling creates a much safer travel environment for the authority's patrons. Existing cash toll plazas on the Turnpike network represented a primary safety concern. And as of yesterday, with the final conversion of the Indian Nation Turnpike to cashless, only the Will Rogers remains yet to be converted, but it will be converted totally by the end of this year. So the effect of cashless tolling on the 2025 operating budget is a decrease of about $9.5 million. To complete the explanation of increases, and I think I left out that the increase with the troopers was a little bit under $1 million. And to complete the explanation of increases to the operating budget, we can't avoid talking about inflation. As you are aware, although it has improved over the last year, it cannot be fully eliminated. With continuing unprecedented low employment, attracting qualified applicants and retaining good employees is imperative for the authority, and to that end, the authority did market adjustments to fill certain job classifications. The authority also has seen increases to utilities. The U.S. Postal Service also did an increase. Road maintenance costs continue to, including asphalt, concrete, drainage, and culvert costs have increased, not to mention the cost of mowing and sweeping contracts that are competitively bid. This, plus the increased vehicle and equipment repairs that Highway Patrol and maintenance budget have sustained due to supply chain disruptions, have increased our budgeted expenses by just over $2.7 million. And finally, due to an increase in the use of much-needed software subscriptions that keeps us functioning more efficiently, better technology for our maintenance field workers, increased positions related to the Access program, and increased safety supplies, that was another $6.3 million increase dollars. So again, we went up about $400,000. That concludes my overview of the operating budget. We do recommend approval of this item. We also recommend approval of the $35 million reserve maintenance deposit, and as I said before, the budget also includes a capital plan of over $165 million. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. I would just comment, also compliments to the team for a very well-done budget. And as we discussed last month, this is a very small increase, but that's partly because we had to implement a very large increase last year in preparation for a lot of what we've done, and it was anticipated. And as we projected last year, you have accomplished exactly that. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. We are just finding more efficient ways to collect tolls and also to make it easier on our patrons. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. Staff have reviewed and recommended this item for approval, and I therefore move for approval of this item.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1235. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Please vote appropriately. Voting is ended, and item 1235 has been approved.
All right, the next item of business is Mr. Jordan Perdue. Thank you.
Good morning. This item, my warm-up item, if you will, is for the adoption of the Gilcrease budget. Similar to the system budget that Wendy just presented, it did not decrease from last month's acceptance. It is for $1.3 million for the calendar year 2025, and it went up about $200,000, and the majority of that was for the increase, projected increase in the number of transactions and traffic in general. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and we would recommend adoption of the 2025 Gilcrease budget.
Thank you, Mr. Perdue. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise, staff has reviewed and recommended approval of this item, item number 1236, and I therefore move for approval of this item.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1236. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Please vote appropriately. Voting's ended, and item 1236 has been approved. Now,
Okay.
the next items of business are the finance items. Ms. Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, Chairman Jones. The next item is item 1237, going to be presented by Ms. Taggart.
Good morning, Chairman Jones, members of the board. Submitted for consideration and approval of the authority is a request to authorize the director to negotiate and execute an extension to the existing tag fulfillment contract with Oklahoma Direct for an extended term of up to 12 months, ending December 31st, 2025. The amount due during the extension shall not exceed $240,100, revising the not-to-exceed contract amount previously approved from $1,115,000 to $1,353,100. This contract was authorized pursuant to board approval of Agenda Item 487 on August 28, 2018, at an amount not to exceed $675,000. Board approval of Agenda Item 1097 on August 1st, 2023, revised the contract not to exceed amount $860,000 through March 9th, 2024, due to higher than anticipated conversion of plate pay customers to Pike Pass customers. Board approval agenda item 1163 on February 6, 2024, revised the contract not to exceed the amount of $1,115,000 through December 31st, 2024, due to the continued higher than anticipated conversion. The proposed extension for 2025 will provide necessary time for a new vendor to onboard. It is anticipated that the Oklahoma Direct will process approximately 490,000 transponders during the extended term in December 31st, 2025. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Taggart. Just one comment for the record. It's $1,355,100.
Yes, sorry about that.
It's okay. All right, any other questions? Thank you very much. Staff has reviewed and recommended this item for approval, and I therefore move for approval of item 1237.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1237. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Please vote appropriately.
All right. Oh, sorry. The next item is item 1238, and this item is going to be presented by Mr. Purdue again.
All right. Just put this here. Submitted for consideration and approval of the authority is a request to authorize the director to negotiate and execute an amendment to the agreement between the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority and Service Oklahoma that defines responsibilities under the Oklahoma Electronic Toll Collection Act. If this amendment is adopted, OTA will reimburse Service Oklahoma for certain costs and expenses necessary to implement an electronic vehicle registration system authorized pursuant to the provisions of Senate Bill 2035, AKA the Mason Treat Act, which modified the implementation of these modified registration and plate issuance procedures will enable a more timely identification of a motor vehicle registered owner upon vehicle purchase or transfer, and help facilitate the OTA's collection of tolls. The OTA will reimburse Service Oklahoma for the public awareness program and actual implementation costs for an amount not to exceed $750,000. The OTA will also reimburse Service Oklahoma for costs associated with the distribution of metal plates and temporary decals for an amount not to exceed $500,000 on an annual basis. The underlying agreement between OTA and Service Oklahoma renews annually unless either party gives notice to terminate pursuant to the termination provisions, meaning the OTA and Service Oklahoma could potentially work out a payment of up to $500,000 on an annual basis. Service Oklahoma has to provide a report showing the cost for the disposal and distribution of the metal plates for us to reimburse them on an annual basis. But this is, in my opinion, how government is supposed to work. Mason Treat was involved in a very serious accident, and because of that, we identified a problem. Many stakeholders came together and put together Senate Bill 2035, and we made major significant changes. And Joe and Julie and TJ were all very integral in that part. Senate leadership, House leadership, the governor's staff, everybody. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Purdue. Staff have reviewed and recommend this item for approval, and I therefore move for approval of item 1238.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1238. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Please vote appropriately. Item 1238 has been approved.
All right, the next item is item 1239, also Mr. Purdue.
All right, thank you. Before I dive into these next three agenda items, I'd kind of like to take a step back and rehash how we got here. Back in June of 2022, the board adopted several resolutions that are very similar to the ones I'm about to present. One that you will not see here was one that authorized or directed us to seek Oklahoma Supreme Court validation for the first series of access-related bonds. We did that. We filed back in August of 2022 and received approval in the summer of 2023. So once we received that validation, there's no need for us to go back. So that's why that resolution is not part of these next batch. Okay, so on to item 1239. Submitted for consideration and approval of the authority is a resolution authorizing the issuance of Oklahoma Turnpike Authority Oklahoma Turnpike System revenue bonds consisting of second senior revenue bonds, Series 2025A and Series 2025B, or as further designated by year and series. Each in one or more series of subseries consisting of fixed-rate bonds to be issued at one time or from time to time for the purposes of financing or refinancing capital costs of turnpike projects and improvements to the Oklahoma Turnpike System, refunding Oklahoma Turnpike System Second Senior Revenue Bonds Series 2017A of the authority, funding capitalized interest and certain reserves with bond proceeds, and paying costs of issuance. Approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of a 21st Supplemental Trust Agreement, providing for the issuance of said bonds, authorizing a form of bond purchase agreement and preliminary official statement, and approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of a final official statement relating to said bonds. approving the authority to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure agreement, escrow deposit agreement, and such other documents and agreements relating to said bonds as may be necessary or required, authorizing provisions for credit enhancement of said bonds as may be beneficial, providing for the negotiated sale of said bonds, and authorizing certain actions to be taken to effectuate the above. Okay, that's a lot. To provide a little bit of color on what this resolution actually does for us. With approval, this would authorize the authority to enter the bond market to generate an amount sufficient to generate $1 billion in construction fund proceeds. That money would then be used for right-of-way, utilities, actual construction, construction management, all the things that are needed for access to continue forward. And Joe can speak on that here in a little further. Another part of this is the potential refunding of the outstanding 2017A bonds. This piece is wholly dependent on market conditions for the day of sale. The 2017A series bonds were issued back in January 2017. They were for the first series of driving Ford related bonds. And part of the resolution also requires us to generate a minimum of 3% aggregate savings. So if market conditions don't align with that, we simply just remove it and issue the new money piece, the 25A bonds. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to dispel some misinformation. When we issue refunding bonds, we do not go beyond the original term of the original bonds. So the 2017A bonds were issued back in 2017, and they extend to 2047. In no scenario would the refunding bonds in 2025 go beyond 2047. And any maturities not refunded will be left outstanding in the 2017 series bonds. Right now, it was about, it was about a $450 million deal back in 2017, and right now, about 250 of that is eligible for refunding based off our parameters. But again, it could go up or down depending on the market conditions of that day. And one other piece that this resolution would do, should it be approved, is one of the resolutions in June of 2022 authorized the authority to issue $1 billion of debt for access. We issued $500 million of that in October of last year. So technically, we have an outstanding $500 million authorization to enter the bond market. With this resolution, we're going to close that and close it off. We would only have this outstanding authorization for $1 billion. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would just start by saying thank you, Mr. Perdue. That's a very thorough and good explanation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
What was the interest rate on the 2017 bonds? Do you recall, do you have that?
Yeah, let me see. I believe it was, I sent it to Chairman Jones the other week, and it was about 4.5%, I believe. But really, when you're looking at the refunding, you're going in and looking at it maturity by maturity, and not necessarily the interest rate for the entirety of the deal.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. So staff and I have reviewed, staff has reviewed this item recommended for approval, and I therefore move for approval of item number 1239.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1239. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Please vote appropriately. Voting is ended, and item 1239 has been approved.
And you're still up, Mr. Perdue.
Thank you. Submitted for consideration and approval of the authority is a resolution authorizing the director to submit an application to the Council of Bond Oversight for provisional and final approval of the financing and refinancing of certain turnpike projects and authorizing certain actions to be taken to effectuate the above. A little bit about the Council of Bond Oversight. This is a required approval before any state entity can issue debt. Their role is to ensure each issuance is in compliance with current statutes and rules and they also review and approve all fees of service providers. And really, this is just another example of oversight and review of the Oklahoma Turnpike and their practices when issuing debt. Approvals of these resolutions would allow us to enter the market in the first quarter of 2025.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Perdue? Hearing none, staff have reviewed and recommended this item for approval, and I therefore move for approval of item 1240.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1240. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Please vote appropriately. Voting is ended, and item 1240 has been approved.
And once more, thank you.
All right. Submitted for consideration and approval of the authority is a resolution declaring the intent of the authority to reimburse certain capital expenditures on turnpikes and turnpike improvement projects with the proceeds of tax-exempt turnpike revenue bonds in accordance with applicable U.S. Treasury regulations. Back in February of 2022, the board passed a resolution for reimbursement, which basically means if we expend general fund monies on a project and then for access or another capital program, we are then allowed to use bond proceeds to reimburse ourselves. This resolution amends and restates that resolution. We're doing that because we are adding 3 system improvement projects to access. So that way, these projects will now be part of the reimbursement resolution, should the need arise for us to reimburse ourselves with bond proceeds. And just a quick overview, those 3 projects are, one is the Muskogee Bridge Rehab on the Arkansas River Bridges, and another is on the Muskogee is pavement reconstruction, and the final one is the H.E. Bailey pavement reconstruction. And all told, those are about $125 million together combined, and they are being moved from our capital program into access. And I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, staff has reviewed and recommended this item for approval, and therefore I move for approval of item 1241.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1241. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Please vote appropriately.
And I would just like to say thank you, Mr. Perdue, for not only your excellent presentation, but for the work you do every day to make this happen.
Item 1241 was approved.
Oh, sorry. All right, the next item of business is item 1242. Ms. Patterson.
Good morning, Chairman Jones, members of the authority. Item number 1242 is the payment register prepared by the Comptroller Division. This payment register includes all payments made for the month of September 2024. The staff has reviewed this item and recommends this item for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. Any questions? Hearing none, staff has reviewed this item and recommended for approval, and I therefore move to approve item 1242.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1242. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Please vote appropriately. Voting is ended, and item 1242 has been approved. Our next item of business is in the engineering and construction. Vice Chairman Berry.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. First item is item 1243, which will be presented by Mr. Butler.
Good morning, Mr. Berry, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to see everyone this morning. Engineering has a couple items we'd like to present today for consideration. That's items 1243 and 1244. First item here is a construction contract award. 2 of those. The first one is JKT 30,005. You'll notice a couple of numbers there on that heading. That is our design segment for this access bond program project. The actual construction project number is JKT 30,705A. This project's pavement widening from milepost 132.4 to 135.85, and this is in Oklahoma County. Projects include 6-lane widening to the inside from Eastern Avenue extending east to I-35 interchange, including some ramp improvements. As you can see there, our low bidder is C3 Construction, had 5 Bidders total on the project, C3 had a low bid amount of $14,672,511.38. This is a very aggressive bid. We're happy to see. It's about 20.3% under the engineer's estimate. Just to put it in perspective a little bit, the fourth and fifth bidders, which we usually just show the first three, had bids of around 18 million and 25 million. So again, 14.6 million. We're very pleased with that. Staff's scrutinized the bids, and we recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions.
That's a pretty good, really good bid.
Really good bid,
Any
yes.
indication, I noticed all three of those are quite a bit under the engineer's estimate. Any reason you think it's causing that, which is a good thing for us?
Yeah, C3 Construction is a contractor that's been a sub for us on a lot of projects, but haven't, done a lot of prime work here recently. I think some contractors probably want to get in the access bond program construction market. They want to get their foot in the door. And it's a great project, fairly straightforward given the amount of it. But, yeah, I expect we'll see aggressive bids for a while. We've been seeing good bids for quite some time. So, yeah, we're pleased with the bid.
That's good.
We're not going to complain.
No.
And you have vetted him because he looks like he's pretty low.
Yes.
I mean, based on the other two.
Absolutely. Yeah, C3, I mean, they've got 14 projects with the Department of Transportation here in the last couple of years. Yeah, we're not going to question them.
That's great.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Butler? If not, I move that we approve item 1243 as presented.
The other,
I think there's one other.
part.
Oh,
Let's do it.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, the second project, there's MUMC 52. This is a capital plan project. This is rehabilitation of Bridge 41.16. This is near Muskogee in Muskogee County. Project includes repairing pre-stressed concrete beam ends, diaphragms, bearings, abutment substructures, replacement of the deck, parapets, and approach slabs. Had 7 bidders on this project. Paradigm Construction's our low bid in the amount of $2,664,201, which is about 10.6% below the engineer's estimate. Again, another good bid. Staff's looked the bid over, reviewed it, recommend approval.
Again, I would make a comment that, not seeing all 7 bids, but certainly the 3 that are listed are all underneath the engineer's estimate, which is another good.
Yeah, absolutely.
thing
And-
for us.
And again, the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh bids were ranging between 3.1 million to 3.6 million. So, yeah, it was a tight group.
That's good.
Those are all great. Are there any other questions? If not, I move that we approve item 1243 as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1243. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Please vote appropriately. Voting is ended and item 1243 has been approved.
Mr. Butler.
Yes, item 1244, this is submitted for the consideration of the authority's request that the consulting engineer services contract with Olson be renewed for a period of 1 year from January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. The renewal for the 2025 is the last year of the 2 optional 1-year extensions. This contract will cover the trust agreement and meeting requirements of the authority at an annual amount of $850,000 for year 2025. The contract will provide for additional services only as requested and approved by the director. These services will be requested by task order and will be based on an approved fee schedule to be included in that contract. Staff's reviewed the item and we recommend approval.
Are there any questions? If not, I move that we approve this item as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1244. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Please vote appropriately. Voting is ended and item 1244 has been approved.
My last item is item 1245, which will be presented by Ms. Rhonda Powell.
Good morning, Chairman Jones, members of the authority, Director E. Kelly. The following parcels consisting of the approximate acres at the locations identified below were previously acquired by the authority. We have 2 parcels on the Gilcrease Expressway, both in Tulsa County. G103.65 acres more or less, G115 Track 1, 0.90 acres more or less, both in Section 29, Township 19 North and Range 12 East. The Indian Nation 119, Section 16, Township 5 North, Range 14 East, approximately 11.40 acres, again on the Indian Nation Turnpike in Pittsburgh County. A staff review of the property was conducted, and it has been determined that a portion of the described parcels in the approximate acreage identified was acquired as uneconomic remnants and is not needed for any construction or maintenance needs of the turnpike system. Based on that determination, staff recommends that the authority consider and vote to declare the attached parcels surplus and authorize the director to obtain a survey, appraisal, and sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of the property, including use in a land swap to acquire other property needs for the turnpike system. Both the properties on the Gilcrease were purchased as part of the project GCT 2500 to construct the Gilcrease Expressway. An abutting landowner contacted us about G103, and the city of Sapulpa contacted us about G115 Track 1. Neither parcel has public access. An abutting landowner also contacted us about the Indian Nation 119. This parcel was purchased for the McAllister Service Plaza in 2013, purchased as a channel mitigation and considered landlocked. This is subject to wetlands restriction by the Corps and will be sold as restricted by the permit. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Are there any other questions?
Good report.
If not, I move that we approve item 1245 as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 1245. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Please vote appropriately. Voting is ended, and item 1245 has been approved. Next items of business are our reports. Our first report is the Highway Patrol Report. Major Garrett Vowell. Good morning.
Chairman, board members, for the month of September, Turnpike troopers made 3,305 violator contacts, assisted with 720 motorist assists, investigated 215 motor vehicle collisions, worked 886 shifts, which averaged 208 miles per shift for a total of 184,000 miles driven. We had 2 fatalities. One was on the Turner, departed the roadway and struck a bridge. The other one was on the creek, unsafe lane change, and was struck by another vehicle. We had 15 criminal interdictions, and the rest of the special enforcement information you guys have been provided with. Do you have any questions?
August, we had 170 accidents that were investigated, and then in September, it was the 215, both of which are well above anything we've seen in the last 3 years and well above trend lines. Do you have any thoughts on what happened?
Yeah, I was just texting my guys back there while you guys were talking, and they're saying football. I don't know if that's but September is the football when everything kicks off. There was 3 games here, and they said the uptake in vehicles on our interstates on the Cimarron, the Turner, and the Kilpatrick, a lot more traffic are being driven out there. I looked, and last year we had 266 crashes in September, so it was a little bit higher last year. So I'm already considering to go back and look at a good 3-year trend and see what's going on there. But it's very interesting to see that number and fluctuation for September, but possibly that would be the football traffic.
I think it was back in September, there was a emphasis put on when you had vehicles on the shoulder, flashing lights, et cetera. How's the
Right.
public response been to getting over in the left lane? And I know you guys had indicated that there's gonna be stiff fines for people that didn't.
Yes, and we did, and those fines are very expensive. But we had a really good turnout from across the state, not just on the turnpike systems, but everywhere. And what we noticed from our guys on the turnpikes, they were really shocked about how many people actually obeyed that law. They sat out there for hours and hours, doubled up, trying to watch and get that information out. But we had a pretty good response from the public of people slowing down and actually attempting to get over, so.
That's great news.
Yeah.
I know there'd been, fairly good emphasis put on that.
Yes.
And certainly, the public was made aware of it. So it's nice to see that they responded in such a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. Any other questions? Thank you, Major Val.
Okay, thank you.
Our next report is Consulting Engineer Report, Mr. Jimmy Sparks.
Good morning, Chairman Jones, members of the authority, Director E. Kelly. I want to start off by saying appreciate the authority's trust and confidence in Olson and extending our contract for one more year. And we always look to find better ways for our inspection information and all that to become a useful tool for the Turnpike Authority and their planning and certainly with the with levels of reinvestment to keep the system operating at high levels. So we have completed all of our in-service facility inspections for the 2024 inspection cycle, and we'll be starting the 2025 inspection cycle soon. Within those are all turnpike pavements, all 860-plus turnpike bridges, and over 4,000 drainage structures that are smaller than bridge class, so as well as a visual inspection of all toll collection facilities. So already time to start thinking about capital planning over the next 5 years. So last month I highlighted some of the projects that are in the 2025 to 2029 capital plan, and with approval of the budget today, I wanted to highlight a series of projects that have been discussed a lot, that OTA has invested in heavily over the past couple of years. So since 2019, I have that OTA has completed or started over 116 miles of Dalbar retrofit and diamond grinding contracts. Currently, it looks like there's about 70 additional miles of those type of projects programmed in the capital plan. Most of the OTA's pre-1989 concrete pavements were designed with skewed joints and no dowel bars for load transfer. So the dowel bar retrofits establish load transfer across the slabs and reduce the impacts and reduce deflection of the slabs. The diamond grinding obviously comes in and provides a smooth surface to create a uniform profile and extend the pavement life. So where we're not going in and reconstructing, this has been a great method to smooth up the pavements and extend the life. So there are a few older miles of concrete pavements that are being maintained by asphalt overlays, but this would cover almost everything that was pre-Kilpatrick Creek program in the late 80s that has had some sort of surface treatment for the older concrete. So again, just highlighting the amount of reinvestment and the results we see. In November, our engineers checked 27 special overload trucks for passage on the turnpike bridges. So I mean, we still seeing a lot of large heavy loads moved about the turnpike system. As always, our capital plan project summary is in our monthly report, and always happy to answer any of your questions.
Are there any questions?
I would just
Questions,
comment that.
just a comment, the Dalbar retrofit and diamond grinding certainly works, and I think when we originally talked about it, we were talking about extending the life maybe 8 to 10 years, but we think it may be even more than that. Isn't that right, Joe? I mean, or Jimmy, what are we thinking now? 12 years or something, or?
When we're seeing older pavements, we're still seeing good structural values of those. We're certainly going in and replacing slabs as part of those contracts where we are seeing, large cracks or whatever within those slabs. So
What's the oldest highway we have right now that's had the Dalbar retrofit and diamond grinding?
that would be Cimarron, Muskogee, parts, and probably north end of the Indian Nation, I believe, were all 1960s. Don't quote me on that, but those are some of the oldest concrete. So.
Okay, thanks.
I was just going to comment that you've been, Olson and you, Mr. Sparks, have been our partner in all this for as long as I've been on the Turnpike Authority, and I appreciate your partnership and the work that you do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Our next report is a trustee report. Ms. Singleton, good morning.
Good morning, Chair and members of the authority. As bond trustee to the authority, all monthly debt service transfers were made for the semi-annual payments due to the bondholders as required by the trust agreement. The annual budget for OTA Turnpike and Gilcrease Turnpike for the 2025 calendar year was approved earlier this morning, and also a requirement of the trust agreement. The semi-annual debt service reserve valuation was completed and provided to OTA, and also a compliance requirement of the trust agreement. To our knowledge, all other requirements set forth in the trust agreement have been satisfied. Questions of my report?
Any questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next report is the operating results and financial conditions. Ms. Wendy Smith. Good morning again.
Yes, I'm back. Not as much as Jordan was, but I'm back. So we certainly do appreciate your approval of the 2025 annual budget for the system, as well as the 2025 annual budget for the Gilcrease Turnpike, as well as the financing items that Jordan Purdue actually presented this morning. With the two approvals of the budgets, the authority continues to stay in compliance with this trust indenture, as Rachel just told you in her report. The Gilcrease transactions continue to climb. The Gilcrease Turnpike has now been open long enough to compare year over year. So for September over September, it increased 34.4%, and it went from 20,841 vehicles per day in September of 2023 to 28,015 per day in September of 24. It does continue to model after a commuter turnpike, and so therefore the average daily traffic on weekdays is closer to 31,000, and on weekends is closer to 22.7. So we also continue to be in a strong financial position, as can be seen from the operations report for September that was prepared by the Comptroller Division. Net toll revenues through September of 2024 for the Oklahoma Turnpike System continue to outpace last year's toll revenues through that same period by 7.2%. And finally, I think it's important to highlight this. Jonna worked really hard on the budget, and she worked with all of the division managers, and they do such a good job coming up with what their budgets are going to be. So basically in 2023, they worked really hard on their 2024 budgets. And also during the year, they continue to be good stewards of the authority's money as they keep their operating expenses down. As you can see, it's been 20.2% under the 2024 operating and maintenance budget annualized, basically. And per the authority's trust indenture, any monies unspent in the authority's operating fund drops down into the general fund, and that money is used for capital projects, thereby keeping our roads in the best condition possible. So with that, the OTA also continues to steadily achieve and exceed its trust-required senior and total debt service ratios. I'll take any questions.
Any questions or comments?
I just have one comment. I'd like to give a thank you to somebody who very quietly does their job every day very well, and who made a big shift from toll collections to revenue assurance. Ms. Mary Biswell and her team just do an outstanding job every single day, just making it happen, and very quietly, and probably don't normally get recognized, but I want to thank you for what you do.
And with a lot of detail. She does do a great job, and we really do rely on her. Thank
Anything
you.
else? Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks.
Our next report is our director's report, Director Joey Kelly.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Really want to highlight a few things that I think have already been lectured about this morning, but the budget adoption, really appreciate items 1235 and 1236 for us. Again, just as Wendy highlighted and as Jimmy really put an exclamation point on, that's $166 million in capital plan projects. As Darren said, we've got some bids that have come in under what we had budgeted. That allows us to move some projects forward. So what you're going to see in the next month, I'm going to look at TJ real quick, but we've got several projects that we're bidding out this month that'll be on that we hope to bring to the board next month for approval. That'll get them under construction a little bit sooner. We want to get that money out on the road and just as Wendy indicated, keep it in really good condition and really put that money back on the road. There is a slide that's being shown right now that's our 2025 capital improvement plan priorities. Those top 4 up there are really what we're focused on now. You'll notice that there are a couple things missing that have been on that list in the past, and that's because we're nearing completion of the Dalbar retrofit program to touch all those old pavements, and the cable barrier program to add cable barrier to the medians of all the turnpikes in Oklahoma. So we're nearing completion of those. That's been a lot of work over the course of the last 7 or 8 or 9 years, and that we're really happy to have be near the end of. We know that by where we've put cable barrier, we're saving lives from crossover fatality accidents. We currently carry more traffic today than we ever have. In fact, on an average day, averaging out bad weather days and heavily traveled holidays, we have 700,000 cars a day that choose to drive on the turnpike system here in our state. Nearly half of those are from out of state that are contributing to the conditional improvements into the roads that we operate and maintain as the toll authority. So obviously it's been very successful, we're excited to be completing the Dalbar retrofit program and the cable barriers and really highlighting those. There was a question asked earlier about the oldest pavements that we have, and I think Jimmy kind of answered that. I think another thing to highlight, the oldest Dalbar retrofit project that I'm aware of is on I-44 near May here in Oklahoma City. It's not a turnpike, it's interstate. That was done in either the late 90s, I think it may have been done in 99, 98, and completed in 2001. And it was supposed to be a 5 to 8 year fix, and it is still holding strong. ODOT is still maintaining and having to go back in and patch some of that and replace panels. But that original pavement on that section is still there, and that Dalbar retrofit project, although still a patch, is still in place. And I know it's not one to... Yeah.
That's good information.
It's not a great project to highlight because it's nearing the end of its design life and it's a little rough, but it just goes to tell you how long these DBR projects can last. And that carries a whole lot of traffic there on I-44. I don't know the numbers. Jordan also did a great job presenting item 1238 today that has to do with the paper plate issue. I really want to, and again, Jordan did a great job, but I want to really highlight and thank the Pro Tem Greg Treat, his policy director, Becky Gooch, who invited us to several meetings, David Mockemer, who Jordan didn't mention, but he attended all those meetings with us early on in the legislative session working on the language, as well as the House Speaker designee, Kyle Hilbert, Senate Transportation Chairman John Hast, who originally authored some legislation around paper tags. We were able to combine his legislation into, work with the legislature to combine that into Senate Bill 2035. And of course, Service Oklahoma CEO Jay Doyle and the Department of Public Safety Commissioner Tim Tipton. Everybody has been great to work with on this project to really streamline and minimize the amount of time that you drive without a license plate in our state. What had happened to Mason Treat is he'd bought a vehicle from a person, and that person kept the license plate on the vehicle. So he was driving around, and you're allowed, I think, 60 days to drive without a license plate. Well, during that 60 days, he'd been pulled over a couple of times and because he didn't have a plate. And he was pulled over on the side of I-40, and then an inattentive driver ran into the back of both the police vehicle and his vehicle, injuring him and the officer. This highlighted an issue that was, we can't have people driving around without a license plate. So the intent and this went into effect September 1, but now if you purchase a vehicle from an individual, you're able to print immediately a license plate that you could, a paper tag to put on the back of your vehicle. But Service Oklahoma does a great job of mailing out within 10 days a metal license plate that is registered to the owner. Benefit the Turnpike Authority has in that is those have previously been unbilled transactions that we see on our network. If it's a paper plate, it had a serial number, but the only place that was logged was at the dealership and when you sold person to person, there was no plate on that vehicle. This legislation resolved that and minimized it tremendously. So I really want to thank everybody I listed earlier for that. And the reason that we're participating is, again, it's a revenue increase for OTA, which is a positive for us. Yesterday at 10 a.m., the Indian Nation Turnpike went completely cashless. We went cashless a couple months ago on at State Highway 9 and down near Antlers. This last move was for the McAllister Toll Plaza that's just south of US 69 there on the Indian Nation Turnpike. So we're excited to have that done. Just this last week, we've had some weather move through the state, and we get emails in the middle of the night that we have toll collectors taking shelter on the Will Rogers Turnpike during some of the tornadic events. And so I'm glad to get these types of situations behind us. It's a remote place to work. It's tough to get to and from. When we have weather events like that, it'll be nice not having people out trying to man a toll booth. When they leave the toll booth and go get in the storm shelter, there's still traffic coming. And those people pull up to pay cash, and then they wait at the booth trying to figure out what they're supposed to do when there's nobody there. We have great people in our state. They all want to pay their tolls, and that leaves them exposed to bad weather. So it's good to get this entire situation, get to fully open road tolling. The next ones that are coming are November 20th. This is a formal announcement here, that the final turnpike will go cashless. The I-44 Will Rogers Turnpike that connects Tulsa to Joplin, Missouri, is going to convert on November 20th. So that's a huge deal. This will be our last one. We won't get those midnight emails about toll collectors taking shelter anymore, and I'll be thankful for that. And again, our conversion to cashless is all about safety. In the years leading up to our start of going cashless, the most opportune time to have an accident on our network was in a tolling area or in a construction zone. And so we try to minimize construction zones. This is just our effort to minimize conflict points where people are stopping, inattentive, digging for change, and trying to prepare to pay a cash toll. In fact, as we've gone cashless, our traffic volumes have increased significantly. And I think part of that is because you don't have to carry change in your pocket anymore to pay those tolls. So it's made it much more convenient for the traveling public. And we're excited to be completely done with this initiative. We did our first one in 2017. This isn't new to us. We're continuing to work on streamlining the process. We really took a hard look and accelerated that program in 2019. And we had a 10-year plan leading up to 2019, and I'm happy to say we've done it in 5 years. So that's been great. And kudos to the entire team for that. A little bit of an Access Oklahoma update and in reference to the council bond oversight resolution and the resolutions the board just approved this morning. The bond issuance is, of course, to support the Access Oklahoma long-range plan. The initial program estimate was $5 billion presented in a net present value scenario, and we used estimates and quantities and bid documents from 2021 to estimate that. This new plan, and they were planned in 2021 dollars, and it was a future forecast. Currently, and the number that's going to be shown at the bottom on the screen up there is $8.2 billion, and that is going to be what the stack of receipts will be when we end this program. So that's understanding and anticipating future inflation as we have some construction projects that will be in the near term and some that are several years out. We're anticipating some inflation for some of those. We also have contingency built into to those estimates, so that when it's a concept, it's got a 30% contingency built on. And then as we design those plans and get quantities actually calculated, we narrow that down to no contingency at the time of bid. So the graph that's being shown on the screen right now is from the U.S. Department of Transportation. This recently came out, and it tracks all the way back to 2003, and it shows the economic crisis that happened or the financial crisis that happened in 2008, and a little spike in inflation and actually a drop. But I'll show you the last dip on this graph is in 2021, and those were the numbers that we used to estimate the cost of this much needed safety improvement and enhancement program that we're working on, Access Oklahoma. So what you'll see there is that we've seen somewhere around 60% inflation just to highway construction projects. The highway transportation industry is not tracking inflation-wise with the cost of a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk. We are experiencing a higher inflation rate. There are lots of causes to that, and an economist would need to be the one to explain it, but has everything to do with materials that are available, cost of labor, and the workforce shortage that we have in some areas in our industry over the course of the last several years. Also, in addition to catching the inflation and contingency, we've added 3 projects that Jordan highlighted earlier. Those 3 projects are things that just don't fit in our capital plan. They're expensive projects. Our capital plan is not huge. It's basically a 5-year asset preservation plan similar to ODOT's. It doesn't allow us to do great big improvement projects. The section of the Muskogee Turnpike that needs some pavement replacement, we're excited to get that done. It is much needed. If you haven't driven it, it's time. So we're going to get some plans done on that and use bond funds to deliver that project in the near term. Similarly, following one of Olson's bridge inspection reports of the Arkansas River Bridge, there just north of the Port of Muskogee, is in need of some pretty major repairs. It's a big bridge. It's got some spalling of some of the concrete. Some of the joints need to be replaced, the bearings, things like that. So it's a big project, and so that one's captured also as one that needs to be done as part of the bond program. And then lastly, we've been doing a lot of Dalbar retrofit and diamond grind, just like we've already talked about, but we've got a section on the south end of the H.E. Bailey south of Lawton that's really beyond that. It's got some base failure, and it's not smooth, to say the least. I think is probably the best way to describe it. It needs more than pavement. It needs some work underneath the pavement. Again, original pavement back to more than 60 years ago. So it's time for it to be, for us to invest in that. And it's a significant project, and that cost just bears out to be something that we can do in the near term if we add it to the bond program. So that's that was the other project. Again, this the bond program and these new numbers include all of the engineering design, the property acquisition for necessary right-of-way, our utility relocation work, and then all of the construction projects that'll be to come. And everything that we have in this program is more expensive, and I do mean every line item is more expensive than it was when we estimated it 4 years ago. The biggest swing in this being inflation, but that at the time when we presented this, it was a net present value to early 2022. And now we're forecasting what the stack of receipts will be when we finish this program in the next 12 or 13 years. So let's see. And one last thing about it, the inflation, is that it has affected our capital plan projects as well. Darren did a great job answering the question about, us being very pleased with some of the bids. One of the things that he didn't say that I'll say is that over time, if you will recall, a couple years ago, we were bidding projects that were over estimate. And it was because our estimators couldn't keep up with the inflation at that time, and it could be possible that we're estimating just a little bit ahead of inflation at this time. We've seen that it has dropped tremendously this year versus last, so we know we may have overestimated on some projects, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're going to still put the money out on the road, just move some projects up. The last update that I'll give is this week we took our new maintenance employees out to the Oklahoma City Expo Center, and we did tow plow training. That is a picture of a tow plow on the bottom of the screen there. If you have not seen that at work, it looks like somebody's jackknifing down the turnpike, but basically the trailer swings out to the side and we're able to plow both lanes with one pass. It's a big piece of equipment. We would just ask that the traveling public please stay back from our snow plows this winter. It's odd when we have a beautiful day like we had yesterday to be talking about snow and ice, but I've been in the deer stand the week of Thanksgiving sitting in snow before, so I know it can happen. Over the course of the next month, The Turnpike Authority will continue to train with our new hires to make sure that everybody's ready to, when the storms do hit, that we're able to take to the roads and keep, at least to the best of our ability, the turnpikes open here in our state. So that picture was of the employees and of a tow plow. But we would also remind everybody as we approach these holidays to please put away your distractions and always wear your seatbelt, especially in our work zones. And Jeff Garter would tell you we have more work zones than we've ever had out on our network right now, and those are much needed improvements, but it's something that we're really paying attention to. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd take any questions that the board might have of me.
Any questions, comments? Just a couple things. You mentioned wearing seatbelts during holiday travel. We want to remind everybody to wear them every day.
Every day.
And then, can you refer back to, I don't know if you mentioned this, about the Access to Oklahoma estimates on the website?
Oh, yes, sir. So being updated currently while I'm standing here, our accessoklahoma.com, the website, the estimates will be updated on that either right now or by the end of today. If you get on that website and scroll down toward the bottom, there's a map. You can click on the different segments of the map and it'll pull up additional information for anybody who wants to see it. We intend, as we gather more information, as we're able to determine a letting schedule, to be able to add that information to that to our website so that people can see when projects are coming.
Also, Joe, could you take some time and update the board as to the current status relating to the City of Norman, Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, and what we're doing in regard to Access Program?
So yes, the Turnpike Authority, so let me back up just a little bit to, I think an update that we gave maybe in the September or October board meeting, but in August, well, let me back all the way up. The Turnpike Authority's been meeting with the City of Norman and a lot of the affected communities of new routes. We've been doing that since early 2022, meeting with city officials, providing updates during as we were developing plans. There was a lag in that as some of the lawsuits were being settled, where we didn't communicate as much, but we weren't making any progress on the plans during that time. Fast forward, for us, in all of those discussions with the City of Norman, it's been in Moore and Oklahoma City and Newcastle and Cleveland County. A lot of those discussions have been around where the interchanges should be, where they fit, where they make the most sense, where service roads should be built or shouldn't be built, or where a city would request that they be installed. In history, the Turnpike Authority has purchased additional property to build frontage roads. We have a situation in Harrah where we bought, near Harrah with Oklahoma County and Harrah, where we bought additional right-of-way for Harrah and the county to build service roads in the future. This was a similar discussion to that. In those meetings, we marched forward with adding service roads and interchanges at the places that they would fit for the east-west connector specifically. And we're not working on the south extension right now. We haven't re-engaged on that. As we worked through that, we started doing the design plans, including those, what we've called amenities, those local connections and improvements. We have been talking about a sine die day, a day to make a decision that was gonna happen when we received 60% plans. And that day was only pushed back by lawsuits and other things that we've hit as delays. But that was really coming to a head in August. And so through talking with the City of Norman, they put a resolution on their agenda that I think the date was August 27th, and they unanimously rejected the resolution to ask the Turnpike Authority to build these things, or really to ask the city staff to work with us to request these improvements. When that rejection happened, we immediately had to pivot. We'd done a lot of work, a lot of engineering work. We spent a lot of money working on service roads and interchanges. So we've contacted in the weeks following our design staff and started changing the direction of what that area was going to look like. We're still building the turnpike there, still going to connect to the state highway system. Just the connections and the new city streets may be a whole lot less. Still working with Oklahoma City, still working with Moore, and we are open to the opportunity to work with, to continue to work with Norman on future things, future issues with this project and future projects. But what has happened over the course of the last couple of weeks, and will have my days mixed up here, but they brought another resolution in front of the city council. They voted to indefinitely postpone, their city council did. City manager and I talked the following day. I told him, you know, what's the plan? He said, what Tuesday can you come down to Norman? And I said, I talked to Darrell Pyle. I said, there's just no opportunity for us to come down at this point. Our deadline was in August. We've already pivoted and headed a different direction. And based on, you know, watching their city council meetings, it just doesn't look like there's going to be a resolution passed from the city. So we've moved on. We look forward to working with the city of Norman on other things. I've talked to city council folks since then to talk about art in public places, to wetlands, to some of the other, what will the side streets look like? Will we do this? There's all kinds of things that can be pushed to a later date that we can continue to discuss. But service roads and interchanges, that date was in August, and we've moved on. So we look forward to working with everybody in any way that we can. And we know, I've been in this business for 21 years since I started at the Department of Transportation. And I know that service roads and additional interchanges are a much needed improvement and will benefit the community and the folks that live in the area. If it's not requested and we can't get there, then I understand that too, respect it. I've been told what to do in the past, and I'll take this as no different. The city has not requested anything, so we've moved on with our design at this time. Again, look forward to working with the city on other things. We'll help them build service roads and add interchanges no different than we are currently in Claremore. We have a project in Claremore we're adding an interchange. We have a project in Broken Arrow right now where we're working with Broken Arrow to add a connection point to the Creek Turnpike. We've added interchanges in the past, so we will continue to try to do that in the future. But at this time, that's just kind of the update that I have for the board from Norman.
All right, so we'll just be building the turnpike.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. That concludes all of our items of business. I ask for a motion for adjournment to our next meeting scheduled for Tuesday, December 10th, 2024 at 10 a.m.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Thank you. Ms. Weber, please vote appropriately. The voting is ended and we are adjourned.